Before we get started, give this video a like and subscribe if this kind of deep dive storytelling is your thing. And let me know in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it there right now? It is late February, 1957. The city of Philadelphia is gripped by a cold that seeps into the bones, the kind of chill that makes even the bravest hurry home before dusk. In the northeast, Fox Chase is a patchwork of scrubby fields and tangled woods, where the city's edges blur into something wilder, older places where secrets can settle into the earth and wait, undisturbed, for years. On Susquehanna Road, the traffic thins as the day wanes. The road itself is little more than a cracked ribbon, bordered by brambles and the skeletal remains of last summer's weeds. To the west, the city's skyline looms, indifferent. To the east, the land dips into a forgotten lot, choked with undergrowth and the detritus of a city always growing, always discarding. It is here, in this no man's land between urban ambition and rural neglect, that a young man walks with his head down, hands shoved deep into his pockets. He is a student at La Salle College, a place where the future is supposed to be bright, where the world is meant to open up before you. But on this day, he is not thinking about the future. He is thinking about rabbits, specifically the wild ones that dart through these fields, elusive and quick. He has come to check his traps, hoping for a bit of luck, perhaps a meal. He moves quietly, the only sounds the crunch of frost beneath his boots and the distant hum of the city. As he picks his way through the brush, something catches his eye, a cardboard box, battered and half collapsed, lying just off the path. It is the kind of thing most would ignore, another piece of urban flotsam. But there is something odd about it, something that draws him closer. The box is large, the kind used to ship bassinets, its faded lettering barely legible. J.C. Penney. He hesitates, then meals, curiosity outweighing caution. The box is heavier than it should be. He peels back the flaps, and the world narrows to a single, terrible moment. Inside, wrapped in a cheap, plaid blanket, is the body of a small boy. His hair is crudely shorn, his limbs are thin, and his skin is marked by bruises and scars. The boy's eyes are closed, his features peaceful in a way that seems almost deliberate, as if someone had tried to erase the pain that came before. The student recoils, stumbling back into the brush. For a moment, he cannot breathe. The cold is suddenly sharper, the silence heavier. He runs, not stopping until he reaches the nearest house, where trembling hands dial the police. The city's machinery lurches into motion, a call, a dispatch, a squad car roaring down Susquehanna Road. Within the hour, the lot is transformed. Uniformed officers pick their way through the weeds, flashlights cutting through the glow. Detectives in fedoras and heavy coats confer in low voices. The box is cordoned off, its contents shielded from prying eyes. The word spreads quickly, as it always does, and soon the curious gather at the edge of the lot, their breath clouding in the cold air. The scene is both ordinary and surreal, a patch of frozen ground, a cardboard box, a child's body. Yet beneath the surface, something darker stirs. The officers move with a kind of reverence, careful not to disturb the blanket, the box, the boy. They know, instinctively, that this is not just another tragedy. This is something else, a riddle, a warning, a wound cut deep into the city's heart. Detective Stanley Ziegler is among the first to arrive. He is a veteran, his face lined by years of seeing the worst the city has to offer. Yet even he is shaken by what he finds. The boy is small, no more than 4, maybe 6 years old. His hair is uneven, as if hacked off in haste. His body is clean, almost unnaturally so, as if someone had tried to wash away the evidence. There are bruises on his arms and legs, old scars on his torso, a fresh wound on his head. Ziegler crouches beside the box, his breath misting in the cold. He studies the boy's face, searching for something, a clue, a memory, a connection. But there is nothing. The boy is a stranger, an enigma. No missing child reports match his description. No frantic parents call the station, demanding answers. He is, in every sense, a lost child. The medical examiner arrives, his tools gleaming in the fading light. The boy is lifted gently from the box, the blanket folded back with clinical precision. Photographs are taken, measurements recorded. The body is placed in a black bag, zipped tight against the cold. The officers stand in silence, hats in hand, as the ambulance pulls away. As night falls, The lot is empty once more. The box remains a mute witness to whatever horror unfolded here. The wind stirs the weeds, rustling through the brush like a whisper. Somewhere in the city, a mother tucks her child into bed, unaware of the shadow that has fallen over Fox Chase. The investigation begins in earnest. Detectives fan out across the neighborhood, knocking on doors, showing photographs, asking questions. Who is this boy? Where did he come from? How did he end up alone in a box, abandoned in the cold? The answers are slow in coming. The box is traced to a JCPenney store in Upper Darby, but the lead fizzles. Dozens were sold. None can be definitively linked to the boy. The blanket is examined, its cheap fibers offering no clues. The boy's body yields only more questions. Surgical scars on the ankle and groin, a healed L-shaped scar under the chin. Signs of malnutrition, evidence of old injuries, but nothing that points to a name, a family, a home. The city is transfixed. Newspapers splash the story across their front pages, dubbing the child America's unknown boy. Flyers are printed, showing the boy's face, retouched to make him appear alive, healthy, whole. The image is haunting, unsettling. A child who could be anyone, anywhere, yet belongs to no one. Volunteers comb the fields and streams, searching for any trace of the boy's past. Police interview every family in the area, every orphanage, every foster home. But the trail is cold, the clues elusive. The boy remains a cipher, a question mark in the city's collective memory. As the days turn to weeks, the case takes on a life of its own. Theories multiply. Was the boy a runaway? A victim of abuse? A child trafficked from another city? Another state? Each possibility is investigated, each lead pursued to its bitter end. But the truth remains out of reach, a shadow flickering at the edge of the light. In the quiet moments, when the city sleeps and the streets are empty, the detectives return to the lot on Susquehanna Road. They stand among the weeds, staring at the place where the box was found, searching for something they missed. The air is heavy with regret, with the weight of questions that may never be answered. The boy is buried in a potter's field, his grave marked only by a number. The city moves on, but the case lingers, a wound that refuses to heal, a mystery that refuses to fade. The box is gone, the weeds have grown back, but the memory remains, etched into the city's soul. In the years to come, the story will be told and retold, each retelling adding new layers of speculation, new theories, new suspects. But the core of the mystery remains unchanged, a boy in a box, alone in the cold, waiting for someone to remember his name. And so, the city waits. The detectives wait. The boy waits. The wind whispers through the weeds, carrying with it the echoes of a story that has no ending, only questions. The box is empty now, but the space it occupied, the space in the city's heart, remains, a silent testament to the mystery of the boy in the box. Police lights flicker against the gray sky, painting the tangled brush of Fox Chase in pulses of blue and red. The cold, damp air is thick with the scent of mud and exhaust, and the ground squelches beneath the boots of officers as they converge on the vacant lot off Susquehanna Road. Word has spread quickly, a child's body, found in a cardboard box, and already the scene is transforming from a forgotten patch of weeds into the epicenter of a city's dread. Detective Stanley Ziegler is among the first to step from his unmarked car, his face pale beneath the brim of his hat. He pauses at the edge of the lot, surveying the chaos. Uniformed officers stringing yellow tape between saplings, a knot of neighbors huddled behind makeshift barricades, the press already craning for a glimpse of tragedy. The box sits at the center of it all, ordinary, battered, yet suddenly imbued with a gravity that draws every eye. The box itself is a JCPenney bassinet carton, its faded lettering a ghost of domestic hope. Now, it is a container of horror. Ziegler crouches beside it, careful not to disturb the sodden earth. The flaps are folded back, revealing the boy within. He is small, perhaps 4 or 5 years old, his limbs arranged with a strange, unsettling care. The blanket swaddling him is cheap, patterned in muted colors, and clings to his form as if reluctant to let go. A hush falls as the medical examiner, Dr. Joseph Spellman, approaches. He kneels by the box, his gloved hands gentle as he peels the blanket away. The boy's hair is the first thing they notice, cropped short, uneven, as if cut in haste or anger. His skin is pale and freshly washed, scrubbed clean of dirt and blood, but not of the bruises that bloom along his arms and torso. His fingernails are neatly trimmed, his face serene in death. There is no blood, no obvious weapon, no sign of the violence that ended his life, only the silent testimony of old scars and fresh bruises. Ziegler's breath fogs in the cold as he takes it all in. The boy's eyes are closed, his lips slightly parted, as if caught in the middle of a word. The officers exchange glances, each silently asking the same question. Who could do this? The crime scene unit moves with methodical precision, photographing every angle, dusting the box for prints, collecting fibers from the blanket. The ground around the box is churned and muddy, but there are no clear footprints, no tire tracks, just the trampled grass of a place long neglected. The only clues are the objects themselves, the box, the blanket, the boy. Detectives fan out, canvassing the neighborhood. They knock on doors, show photographs, ask if anyone saw a stranger, a car parked where it shouldn't be, a parent searching for a missing child. But the answers are all the same. No one saw anything. No one knows the boy. He is a stranger, dropped into their midst like a terrible riddle. Back at the scene, Dr. Spellman begins his preliminary examination. He notes the surgical scars on the boy's ankle and groin, the healed L-shaped scar beneath his chin. He gently lifts the boy's head, examining the wound at the base of the skull. Blunt force trauma, he murmurs, his voice low. But not recent. There are older injuries, too. Someone cared for him, at least for a time. Ziegler nods, his mind racing. The boy's cleanliness, the trimmed nails, the careful arrangement in the box all suggest a strange, twisted care. This was not a crime of passion or opportunity. This was something else. Calculated, deliberate, almost ritualistic. The press is relentless. Reporters shout questions from behind the tape, their cameras flashing as officers shield the boy's body from view. Do you have an ID? Is there a suspect? What kind of monster would do this? The detectives ignore them, focusing instead on the grim work at hand. As the sun dips behind the city skyline, the lot is bathed in shadow. The boy's body is lifted from the box, placed gently on a stretcher, and covered with a clean white sheet. The officers stand in silence as the ambulance doors close, the only sound the distant wail of a siren. The box is bagged and tagged, its every crease and corner examined for evidence. The blanket is folded and sealed, fibers collected for analysis. The mud around the box is scraped and sifted, every pebble and twig scrutinized for a clue. But as the night deepens, it becomes clear that the scene offers only silence. Detective Ziegler lingers as the others pack up, his gaze fixed on the empty space where the box once lay. He tries to picture the moments before discovery, the boy, alive and frightened, or perhaps already gone, carried here in the dead of night by hands that meant him harm. He wonders if the person who left him watched from the shadows, waiting to see if the city would notice. The lot is empty now, save for the churned mud and the trampled grass. The wind stirs the weeds, carrying with it the faint scent of earth and decay. Somewhere, the boy's name is spoken in a whisper, a memory, a prayer. But here, in the muddy lot, there is only the echo of footsteps and the promise of a mystery that will haunt the city for years to come. The first questions. Rain drizzles from a low, colorless sky, turning the vacant lot on Susquehanna Road into a patchwork of mud and tangled weeds. The cardboard box, once a cradle for new life, now a coffin, sits at the center of a growing circle of police, its flaps gaping open to the elements. The city's heartbeat is quickening, but here, at the edge of Fox Chase, time seems to slow, thickened by dread and disbelief. Detective Stanley Ziegler stands with his collar turned up against the cold, his hat dripping with rain. He's joined by a growing cadre of homicide detectives, their faces drawn tight with the knowledge that this is no ordinary call. They cluster together, boots sinking into the sodden ground, eyes fixed on the tiny, lifeless form that has upended their world. The boy in the box is impossibly small, his features delicate, his hair hacked short. There is something almost reverent about the way the detectives approach him. Careful, cautious, as if any sudden movement might shatter the fragile silence that hangs over the scene. The questions come in a torrent, whispered at first, then spoken aloud as the reality settles in. Who is this child? Why is he here? abandoned in the cold and mud. Who carried him to this place, wrapped him in a blanket, and left him to be found by chance? Detective Ziegler crouches beside the box, his breath fogging in the chill. He studies the boy's face, searching for a spark of recognition, a clue that might tether this tragedy to something known. But there is nothing. The boy is a cipher, a blank page. No wallet, no toys, no scraps of paper. Nothing to say who he was or where he came from. The detectives fan out, moving through the neighborhood in pairs. They knock on doors, their questions echoing through kitchens and parlors. Have you seen a little boy? Is anyone missing from your family, your street? But the answers are always the same. No one knows him. No one is missing. The city's children are all accounted for, tucked safely in their beds. The boy in the box is a stranger, a mystery dropped into their midst. Back at the station, the phones ring incessantly. Every missing child report in the city is pulled and scrutinized, but none fit the boy's description. His age is uncertain, 4, maybe 6. His hair is brown, his eyes closed in a final, unknowable expression. The medical examiner's report is grim: malnutrition, bruises, scars, a blow to the head. But there is no blood at the scene, no obvious weapon, no sign of struggle. It is as if the boy simply appeared, conjured from the city's collective fear. The press descends, hungry for answers. Reporters crowd the station steps, their notebooks open, cameras flashing. The story spreads like wildfire, leaping from neighborhood to neighborhood, city to city. The boy's face, retouched to show him as he might have looked in life, clean and smiling, appears on every front page. The headlines are stark. Who is the boy in the box? Philadelphia's unknown child. Mystery deepens in child's death. The city shivers. Parents hold their children a little tighter. Neighbors eye each other with suspicion. The sense of safety that once blanketed Fox Chase is gone, replaced by a creeping unease. If a child can vanish without a trace, if a boy can be left in a box with no one to mourn him, what does that say about the city, about the world? Inside the precinct, the detectives gather around a table littered with files and photographs. The questions pile up, each one heavier than the last. Why was the boy's hair cut so crudely? Why were his nails trimmed, his body washed? Was someone trying to erase evidence? Or was it an act of twisted care? Detective Ziegler rubs his temples, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. He thinks of his own children, safe at home, and feels a surge of anger at the killer, at the system, at the city itself. He vows, silently, that he will not let this boy be forgotten. But as the days pass, the leads grow thin. The box is traced to a JCPenney store, but the records are incomplete. The blanket is cheap, mass-produced, impossible to track. The boy's fingerprints and footprints are sent to every police department in the country, but no match is found. He remains, in every sense, America's unknown child. The rain continues, washing the city clean, but the stain of the boy in the box lingers. It seeps into the cracks of the sidewalks, the corners of the precinct, the hearts of everyone who has seen his face. The detectives keep asking questions, keep searching for answers, but the silence is unbroken. In the quiet hours of the night, Detective Ziegler returns to the lot on Susquehanna Road. He stands among the weeds, listening to the wind, hoping for a sign, a voice, a name. But there is only the rustle of leaves, the distant hum of traffic, and the memory of a boy whose story has just begun. Autopsy, secrets of the body. The city's morgue sits at the edge of Philadelphia's bustling heart, a squat, gray building that seems to absorb the drizzle and gloom. Inside, the air is cold and sterile, humming with the faint, mechanical rhythm of refrigeration units. Here, beneath flickering fluorescent lights, Dr. Joseph Spellman begins the work that few envy and fewer still understand. He is the city's medical examiner, a man who has seen more of death than most can imagine. Yet even he feels a chill as the small, shrouded form is wheeled into the autopsy suite. The boy from the box is laid gently on the steel table. His skin, pale as candle wax, is marked by bruises and the fate, ghostly outlines of old scars. Dr. Spellman stands over him, clipboard in hand, his face set in a mask of professional detachment. But there is something in his eyes, a flicker of sorrow, perhaps, or anger at the senselessness of what lies before him. He begins with the basics, dictating into a recorder. Male, estimated age between 4 and 6 years. Height, 3 feet, 3 inches. Weight, 30 pounds. Hair, brown, recently cut, unevenly. He notes the boy's cleanliness, the freshly scrubbed skin, the neatly trimmed fingernails. Someone, he thinks, took great care to erase the traces of a life, to present the body as if an apology for what had been done. The examination moves methodically, each step revealing new secrets. The scalp is examined first, revealing the telltale signs of a recent, crude haircut. The hair is not just short, but jagged, as if shorn in haste with dull scissors. Closer inspection reveals tiny nicks and scratches on the scalp, evidence of a rough and hurried job. Dr. Spellman wonders, was it an attempt to disguise the boy's identity, or simply a final act of control by whoever last held him? He moves to the face, gently parting the boy's lips. The teeth are small, some baby teeth still in place, others just beginning to come in. There are no obvious dental anomalies, nothing that might provide an easy clue. The eyes are closed, the lashes dark against the pale cheeks. Dr. Spellman lifts the lids briefly, noting the clouding that marks the passage of death. The torso tells a more complex story. There are bruises, some fresh, some old, scattered across the arms, chest, and back. Dr. Spellman presses gently, feeling for broken bones, but finds none. The skin is marked by scars, a thin, L-shaped line beneath the chin, healed long ago, another, more recent, on the left ankle, and a third, near the groin, the faint trace of surgical intervention. He dictates each finding, his voice steady but heavy. Multiple healed scars, including surgical scars on left ankle and right groin. L-shaped scar under chin, while healed. He pauses, considering the implications. These are not the marks of a single, catastrophic event, but rather the accumulated evidence of a life touched repeatedly by pain and, perhaps, by medical care. Someone had tried to help this boy, at least once. Someone had failed. The abdomen is sunken, the ribs visible beneath the skin. Dr. Spellman notes the signs of malnutrition. Thin limbs, little body fat, muscle wasting. The boy's stomach is empty, save for a thin, watery residue. He had not eaten for some time before his death. The examiner's hands are gentle as he probes the small frame, searching for internal injuries. There are none, no ruptured organs, no hidden hemorrhages. The most telling wound is at the back of the head. Parting the hair, Dr. Spellman finds a swelling, the skin discolored and tender. He makes an incision, revealing a subdural hematoma, a collection of blood beneath the skull. The brain itself is swollen, the tissue bruised and pale. Here, at last, is the cause of death, blunt force trauma to the head. He dictates the finding, his voice echoing in the cold room. Cause of death, blunt force trauma to the head, resulting in subdural hematoma and cerebral edema. The words are clinical, stripped of emotion, but the reality is stark. The blow was not accidental, not the result of a fall or a child's misadventure. It was deliberate, forceful, final. Dr. Spellman steps back, surveying the body as a whole. He has cataloged every injury, every scar, every clue the boy's body has to offer. Yet for all his expertise, he is left with more questions than answers. Who is this child? What chain of events led him to this table, alone and unnamed? Why did no one come forward to claim him, to weep for him, to demand justice? He orders samples to be taken, blood, tissue, hair. He instructs the staff to photograph every inch of the body, to preserve the evidence for whatever investigation may follow. He knows that in cases like this, the smallest detail can be the key to unlocking the truth. Outside the morgue, the city continues its restless churn. The newspapers are already running with the story, dubbing the boy America's unknown child. The police are inundated with calls, tips, rumors, wild theories. But inside these walls, the only certainty is the boy's silence. Dr. Spellman writes his report, the words precise and unflinching. He notes the absence of identifying marks, no tattoos, no birthmarks, no unique features. He includes the details of the surgical scars, the pattern of bruises, the evidence of malnutrition. He attaches photographs, x-rays, diagrams. He signs his name at the bottom, a final act of witness. The body is prepared for burial, dressed in a simple white shroud. There is no family to claim him, no loved ones to mourn. The city will bury him in a potter's field, a grave marked only by a number. Dr. Spellman stands by as the small coffin is closed, his thoughts heavy with the weight of all that remains unknown. In the days that follow, the autopsy report will be pored over by detectives, journalists, and amateur sleuths. Each will find in its pages the seeds of 100 theories about who the boy was, how he died, and why his story ended in a cardboard box on the edge of the city. But for now, the answers remain elusive, hidden in the silence of the morgue. Dr. Spellman returns to his office, the echoes of the day's work following him down the sterile corridors. He sits at his desk, staring at the file before him. He has done his duty, cataloged the secrets of the body. But the mystery remains, unsolved and haunting. Outside, the rain continues to fall, washing the city clean. But the memory of the boy in the box lingers, a question mark in the heart of Philadelphia. No identity, no answers, only the silent testimony of a small, broken body and the hope that one day someone will speak his name. A city on edge. The story of the boy in the box spreads through Philadelphia like a cold front, slow at first, then all at once, chilling every home, every heart. It begins with a photograph. The city's police, desperate for a lead, turn to the press with a simple request: help us find his name. The boy's face, captured in the stark, unyielding light of the morgue, is transformed by the careful hand of a police artist. His eyes are opened, his cheeks rounded, his lips given the faintest suggestion of a smile. He is dressed, in the image, in a crisp white shirt and a small bow tie, as if ready for Sunday school. The hope is that someone, somewhere, will recognize him not as a corpse, but as a son, a brother, a neighbor. The flyers are printed by the thousands, then tens of thousands. They are tacked to telephone poles, slipped under doorways, hung in the windows of corner stores and bakeries. They flutter in the wind on Market Street, gather in drifts at the feet of commuters waiting for the trolley, and line the walls of police precincts from Center City to the furthest reaches of the suburbs. The boy's face becomes a silent plea, a question that no one can answer. Who am I? The city's response is immediate and overwhelming. Volunteers, church groups, scout troops, veterans, and housewives fan out across the neighborhoods, combing through vacant lots, peering under porches, and waiting for the reeds along Pennypack Creek. They search for anything that might connect the boy to a place, a family, a life. The woods and streams of Fox Chase, once the quiet refuge of children and dog walkers, are now the stage for a grim procession. Boots churn the mud, flashlights sweep the shadows, and every lost mitten or scrap of fabric is examined with trembling hands. In the homes of Philadelphia, a new ritual takes hold. Parents keep their children close, locking doors and drawing curtains as dusk falls. The laughter of children, once a familiar soundtrack to the city's afternoons, is replaced by the low murmur of radios and the turning of newspaper pages. Mothers check on their sleeping sons and daughters more than once each night, haunted by the thought that the boy in the box could have been theirs. The police, under mounting pressure, work around the clock. The phone lines at City Hall are jammed with calls, some helpful, most not. Every missing child report in the tri-state area is reviewed. Every orphanage and foster home is visited. Every hospital and clinic is asked to check their records. The detectives grow gaunt and hollow-eyed, fueled by coffee and the grim determination that they will not let this child remain nameless. The city's newspapers fan the flames of obsession. The Philadelphia Inquirer runs daily updates, printing the boy's photograph on the front page again and again. The headlines grow more desperate with each passing day. Who is the boy in the box? City rallies to identify child. a mystery that haunts Philadelphia. The story jumps from local news to the national wire, and soon, letters arrive from as far away as California and Florida, each claiming to have the answer, each leading nowhere. In the neighborhoods, the mood shifts from fear to suspicion. Strangers are eyed warily, the familiar rhythms of trust and neighborliness are disrupted. Children are forbidden to play in the vacant lots or wander beyond the sight of their mothers. The city's pulse, once steady and confident, now beats with anxiety and dread. Yet for all the fear, there is also a strange, fierce unity. The city's people, divided by class and neighborhood and race, are drawn together by the shared horror of the boy's fate. Candlelight vigils are held on church steps. Prayers are offered in synagogues and cathedrals. The boy in the box becomes a symbol, not just of loss, but of the city's longing for justice, for meaning, for closure. As the days turn into weeks, the search continues. Volunteers return to the woods, undeterred by rain or cold. Detectives follow up every lead, no matter how faint. The boy's photograph remains in every window, a reminder that the city will not forget him. But with each passing day, hope dims. The tips slow to a trickle, the volunteers grow weary. The city's attention shifts, as it always does, to new scandals, new tragedies. Yet for those who touched the case, who saw the boy's face, who searched the woods, who stood vigil in the rain, the obsession never fades. In the quiet hours before dawn, when the city is still and the only sound is the wind rattling the flyers on the telephone poles, the question lingers: who is the boy in the box? And why, in a city of millions, did no one come forward to claim him? The answer, like the boy's name, remains just out of reach, a secret kept by the city and by the silent, smiling face that watches from every street corner, every kitchen table, every troubled dream. The bassinet box. The cardboard box, battered and stained by the damp Philadelphia winter, becomes the first tangible clue in a case defined by absence. It is not just a container. It is a question in corrugated form, a silent witness to the city's most haunting secret. After the boy's body is removed, detectives carefully lift the box from the muddy lot, shielding it from the drizzle as if it were a relic. They bring it to the evidence room, where its faded JCPenney markings are examined under harsh fluorescent lights. Detective Stanley Ziegler traces his gloved fingers over the worn lettering, reading aloud the model number and store code. JCPenney, Bassinet, Upper Darby. The words are entered into the ledger, the first line in a growing file. The box, once meant to cradle a newborn, now holds only the weight of dread. The investigation pivots. If the boy is a cipher, perhaps the box will speak. Detectives reach out to JCPenney's regional office, requesting sales records for the bassinet model. The manager, flustered by the gravity of the request, disappears into the back office and returns with a dog-eared logbook. 12 bassinets of this make and model were sold in the greater Philadelphia region over the past year. 12 boxes, 12 possible paths. The task is painstaking. Detectives assign teams to track down each sale, following the paper trail into the living rooms and nurseries of the city's families. They knock on doors in Upper Darby, Germantown, South Philly, and the far reaches of the main line. Each visit is a study in contrasts. The warmth of family life, the laughter of children, the ordinary chaos of daily existence. In every home, the detectives are greeted with confusion, then relief, then sorrow as the story is explained. Each bassinet is accounted for, each child alive, each family whole. In one house, a young mother clutches her infant to her chest as the detectives examine the box in her attic. In another, a grandmother recalls the day she bought the bassinet for her daughter's first child, now toddling through the kitchen. At each stop, the detectives are met with hospitality and heartbreak, but never with the answer they seek. The search extends beyond the city, into the suburbs and neighboring towns. Detectives pore over shipping records, interview store clerks, and follow up on every fake lead. They consider the possibility that the box was stolen or purchased secondhand or acquired by someone passing through. Each theory is tested, each hope dashed. The trail, so promising at first, grows cold. The box, once a beacon of hope, becomes just another dead end. In the evidence room, it sits on a metal shelf, surrounded by other artifacts of loss. A child's shoe, a broken toy, a scrap of blanket. The detectives visit it often, as if proximity might coax a confession from its silent walls. Yet the box is more than just a clue, it is a symbol. The newspapers seize on its details, weaving it into the fabric of the city's obsession. The bassinet box mystery, the headlines proclaim. Editorials speculate about its journey, its meaning, its connection to the unknown boy. The public imagines 100 scenarios: a mother in distress, a family forced to hide a shameful secret, a stranger passing through with a burden too heavy to bear. In the precinct, the mood shifts. The initial surge of hope is replaced by frustration, then resignation. Detective Ziegler, who has walked the length of Susquehanna Road 100 times in his mind, now finds himself staring at the box late into the night. He wonders about its last journey. Who carried it? With what hands? And with what heart? Was it placed in the lot with care or abandoned in haste? Did someone watch from the shadows as the city's fate was changed forever? The city, too, feels the chill of disappointment. The flyers remain on telephone poles. The volunteers continue to search, but the sense of momentum is gone. The case, once bright with possibility, now settles into the long, slow rhythm of uncertainty. The boy in the box remains unnamed, the box itself a mute witness to a crime that refuses to yield its secrets. As winter turns to spring, the lot on Susquehanna Road begins to green. The mud dries, the weeds return, and the memory of the discovery fades from the headlines. But in the evidence room, the box endures, a fragile link to a life interrupted, a question that will haunt the city for years to come. The blanket and the clues. In the sterile hush of the evidence room, the faded blanket is unfurled beneath the harsh, unwavering light. It is thin and worn, its once bright pattern now dulled by time and use. Detectives and forensic technicians gather around, their faces drawn with fatigue and hope, searching for the ghost of a story in its frayed threads. The blanket, like the box, is a relic of ordinary life, a thing meant to comfort, now transformed into a silent witness to unimaginable sorrow. Detective Stanley Ziegler handles it with care, gloved hands smoothing the fabric as he searches for a label, a monogram, a single thread that might unravel the mystery. But the blanket is stubbornly anonymous. It is the kind sold by the thousands in department stores and five and dimes, indistinguishable from any other. The fibers are cheap, the weave loose, the colors faded into a palette of gray and blue. No initials, no laundry mark, no hidden signature. It is, in every sense, impossible to trace. Still, the detectives persist. They send the blanket to the lab, where technicians examine it under microscopes, searching for hairs, fibers, or stains that might offer a clue. They find nothing that does not belong. A few dark strands, perhaps from the boy himself, and the faint, lingering scent of soap. The blanket yields no secrets. It is as if it has been scrubbed of its past, washed clean of any trace of the hands that once wrapped it around a child. But the lot on Susquehanna Road is not done surrendering its evidence. As the detectives comb the ground where the box was found, they discover more objects, scattered in the mud and tangled grass. Each is bagged and labeled, each a potential key to the locked door of the boy's identity. The first is a blue cord, knotted at both ends, its purpose unclear. It is too short to be a belt, too thick to be a shoelace. The detectives speculate. Was it used to tie the blanket, to secure the box, or for something darker? The cord is sent to the lab, where its fibers are cataloged and compared to the blanket, the box, and the boy's clothing, if any had been found. But the cord, like the blanket, offers no answers. It is mass-produced, sold in hardware stores and markets across the city. There is nothing to distinguish it from 1,000 others. Nearby, a child's scarf is found, half buried in the mud. It is small, knitted from cheap wool, its ends frayed and stained. The detectives wonder if it belonged to the boy or if it was left behind by another child long before the box appeared. They check the scarf for initials, for a name tag, for any sign that it might connect to a family, a school, a neighborhood. But the scarf is as mute as the blanket, its history erased by rain and time. The last object is a man's cap, battered and soaked through, its brim bent and its lining torn. It is the kind worn by workmen and laborers, the kind that could belong to anyone. The detectives examine it for sweat stains, for stray hairs, for a maker's label. They find only the faint outline of a manufacturer's stamp, too faded to read. The cap is sent to the lab, where it joins the growing collection of artifacts, each one a question, each one a dead end. The detectives retrace their steps, walking the perimeter of the lot, searching for more. They sift through the undergrowth, their boots sinking into the mud, their eyes scanning for anything out of place. But the lot is stubborn, its secrets buried deep. The objects they have found, the blanket, the cord, the scarf, the cap, are all they will recover. Back at the precinct, the evidence is laid out on a table, a tableau of loss and futility. The detectives gather around, their faces grim. Each item is examined, discussed, debated. Each is run through the city's records, compared to lists of stolen goods, missing property, lost and found reports. But nothing matches. The trail, so promising in its abundance, grows cold. The press seizes on the details, weaving them into the fabric of the city's obsession. The blanket mystery, the headlines proclaim. New clues and boy in the box case. But the stories are short on substance. The objects, for all their promise, reveal nothing. The public speculates endlessly about the meaning of the blue cord, the origin of the scarf, the owner of the cap. Theories multiply, but none bring the detectives closer to the truth. In the evidence room, Detective Ziegler lingers over the blanket. He thinks of the hands that once wrapped it around the boy, of the care, or the calculation, that went into its selection. Was it chosen for warmth, or for anonymity? Was it a cherished possession, or just another scrap of fabric in a house full of want? He wonders if the boy ever felt safe beneath its faded threads, if he ever slept without fear. The objects remain, silent and stubborn, their stories locked away. The detectives move on to other leads, other clues, but the blanket and its companions haunt them. They are reminders of all that is unknown, all that is lost. The case, once bright with possibility, now settles into the long, slow rhythm of uncertainty. Outside, the city moves on. The flyers remain on telephone poles. The volunteers continue to search, but the sense of hope is fading. The boy in the box remains unnamed, the blanket that wrapped him a shroud of mystery. The orphanage theory. As winter's grip tightens around Philadelphia, the search for the boy's identity grows ever more desperate. The city's detectives, led by the weary but relentless Stanley Ziegler, begin to cast their net wider. If no family has come forward, if no neighbor recognizes the boy's face from the flyers that blanket the city, then perhaps he was not a son, a brother, or a neighbor at all. Perhaps he was a child of the system, a ward of the state, a forgotten soul lost in the shuffle of orphanages and foster homes. The theory takes root in the precinct's cold morning meetings, where coffee steams in chipped mugs and the case files pile ever higher. We need to look at every institution, Ziegler insists, his voice rough with exhaustion. Every orphanage, every home for wayward children, every place a boy could disappear without anyone raising a fuss. The other detectives nod. It is a grim calculus, but one that makes a terrible kind of sense. In a city as large and fractured as Philadelphia, it is all too easy for a child to slip through the cracks. The first stop is the Sisters of the Good Shepherd, a sprawling brick complex perched on a rise at the city's edge. The orphanage, run by nuns in starched habits and sensible shoes, is a place of order and discipline. Children's voices echo in the tiled corridors, mingling with the faint scent of disinfectant and boiled cabbage. The detectives arrive unannounced, their presence sending a ripple of unease through the staff. Sister Mary Agnes, the matron, greets them in her small, immaculate office. Her eyes are sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. All our children are accounted for, she insists. sliding a ledger across the desk. Ziegler and his partner, Detective O'Malley, pore over the names, boys and girls, ages scrawled in neat columns, dates of arrival and departure meticulously recorded. They ask to see the children, and the nuns oblige, lining them up in the drafty gymnasium. The detectives walk the line, searching each face for a resemblance to the boy in the box. The children stare back, some curious, some fearful, none familiar. Ziegler holds up the retouched flyer, the boy's face smiling out from the page. "Does anyone know him?" he asks. The children shake their heads. The nuns confer in hushed tones, but no one recognizes the boy. The ledger is complete. No one is missing. The detectives move on, their list of institutions growing longer by the day. They visit foster homes, group homes, halfway houses. At each stop, the story is the same. All children accounted for, no unexplained absences, no one matching the boy's description. The staff are cooperative, sometimes defensive, always saddened by the story. Some remember rumors, whispers of abuse, of children running away, of records lost or altered, but nothing concrete, nothing that leads to a name. At St. Vincent's Home for Boys, a grizzled caretaker recalls a child who left months ago, but the records show he was claimed by relatives in Pittsburgh. At the House of Mercy, a social worker produces a stack of intake forms, each meticulously stamped and signed. The detectives check and double-check, but the trail leads nowhere. The city's bureaucracy, vast and labyrinthine, offers little help. Files are misplaced, names misspelled, dates confused. Some records are decades old, written in fading ink on brittle paper. The detectives comb through them late into the night, eyes burning, but the boy remains a ghost in the system. The press, ever hungry for new angles, seizes on the orphanage theory. Headlines scream, "Was the boy in the box a ward of the state?" Editorials decry the failures of the child welfare system, demanding accountability. The public, already on edge, grows more fearful, more suspicious. Parents glance nervously at their children, wondering what secrets might be lurking in the city's institutions. For the detectives, the frustration mounts. Each dead end is a blow, each unanswered question a weight on their shoulders. Ziegler, who has spent his career piecing together the stories of the lost and the forgotten, feels the case slipping away from him. He dreams of the boy's face, of the empty box, of the endless rows of names in the orphanage ledgers. Yet the search continues. The detectives refuse to give up, driven by a stubborn hope that somewhere, in the city's maze of homes and records, the answer waits. They re-interview staff, revisit institutions, follow up on every rumor, no matter how faked. But the city's foster children are all accounted for, at least on paper. The boy remains alone, unclaimed, his past erased. In the end, the orphanage theory yields nothing but more questions. If the boy was not a ward of the state, then who was he? Where did he come from? Who cared for him? And who failed him? The mystery deepens, its shadows lengthening as the days pass. The detectives return to the lot on Susquehanna Road, standing in the cold wind, staring at the place where the box was found. The city moves on around them, but they remain, haunted by the face of a child no one will claim. The orphanage theory, once so promising, is just another dead end in a case defined by silence. Yet the question lingers, echoing in the empty halls of the city's institutions. Who was the boy in the box? And why, in a city of millions, did no one notice when he was gone? The House of Horrors. It begins with a whisper, a rumor passed from neighbor to neighbor, growing with each retelling until it reaches the ears of the Philadelphia police. In the weeks after the boy's discovery, the city is a cauldron of fear and suspicion. Every shadow seems deeper, every stranger more suspect. In this atmosphere, even the most tenuous tip is given weight, and so it is that detectives find themselves returning to Susquehanna Road, not to the vacant lot, but to a sagging house just a few blocks away. The house is a relic of better days, its paint peeling, its porch sagging under the weight of too many winters. The yard is choked with weeds and rusted appliances, and a single, battered tricycle lies half buried in the mud. This is the home of Arthur Nicoletti, a man known to the police, if not for crime, then for the chaos that seems to swirl around him. Nicoletti is the owner of a foster home, though home is a generous word for the ramshackle building that shelters a shifting cast of children and adults, some related by blood, others by circumstance. Detective Stanley Ziegler and his partner, Detective O'Malley, approached the house with a sense of foreboding. The rumor that brought them here is vague but persistent. A neighbor claims to have seen a small boy, not unlike the one in the box, on the property in the weeks before the body was found. There are whispers, too, about Nicoletti's stepdaughter, Anna Marie, a troubled young woman who, some say, lost a child under mysterious circumstances. Nicoletti answers the door in a stained undershirt, his eyes wary. He is a man used to questions, and he greets the detectives with a mix of defiance and resignation. "You want to come in? You'd better wipe your feet," he mutters, stepping aside. The house smells of mildew and old cooking grease, the air heavy with the scent of too many bodies in too small a space. Inside, the detectives find a scene of quiet desperation. The rooms are crowded with mismatched furniture, the walls stained by years of neglect. Children's toys are scattered across the floor, their bright colors dulled by grime. In the kitchen, Anna Marie sits at the table, her eyes fixed on a spot just beyond the detective's shoulders. She is thin, her hair pulled back in a tight bun, her hands trembling as she folds and refolds a dish towel. "We're here about the boy," Ziegler says gently, placing the retouched flyer on the table. Anna Marie glances at it, her face unreadable. Nicoletti hovers in the doorway, arms crossed, as if to shield her from the questions he knows are coming. "We heard you might have lost a child," O'Malley says, his tone soft but insistent. Anna Marie's lips press into a thin line. "I lost a lot of things," she says finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "But not him. I never saw him before." The detectives press on, asking about the comings and goings at the house, about visitors, about children who stayed for only a night or two before disappearing. Nicoletti grows agitated, insisting that every child who has passed through his care is accounted for. "You think I'd do something like that?" he snaps, his voice rising. "You think I'd hurt a kid?" Ziegler holds his gaze, searching for a crack in the facade. But Nicoletti is practiced at this, at deflecting, at denying, at surviving. The detectives know better than to expect a confession, but they are looking for something subtler, a slip, a hesitation, a detail that doesn't fit. They ask to search the house, and Nicoletti, after a moment's hesitation, agrees. The search is methodical and grim. Every closet is opened, every drawer examined. The basement is a warren of shadows and cobwebs, the air thick with the scent of damp earth. In a back room, they find a crib, its mattress stained and sagging, but nothing that connects it to the boy in the box. Outside, the detectives comb the yard, their boots sinking into the soft ground. They find nothing but broken toys and empty bottles, the detritus of poverty and neglect. There is no sign of the box, the blanket, or anything that might link the house to the crime that haunts the city. The search complete, the detectives return to the kitchen. Anna Marie sits where they left her, her eyes still distant. Nicoletti stands by the door, his jaw set. "You done?" he asks. "For now," Ziegler replies, gathering his notes. "If you think of anything at all, call us." They leave the house as they found it, a place of secrets, but none that match the horror they are chasing. The rumor, so promising in its specificity, dissolves into the fog of the city's collective anxiety. The detectives file their report, noting the absence of evidence, the lack of connection. The house on Susquehanna Road is, for now, just another dead end. But the visit lingers in their minds. The sense of something hidden, something just out of reach, haunts their dreams. They wonder about Anna Marie, about the child she lost, about the stories that go untold in houses like this all across the city. They wonder how many children slip through the cracks, how many are lost without a name, without a voice, without a single person to mourn them. The city, too, is haunted. The press seizes on the story, dubbing the house of horrors, spinning tales of secret burials and midnight screams. The public devours the rumors, desperate for a villain, for an answer, for a way to make sense of the senseless. But the facts remain stubbornly elusive. There is no evidence, no confession, no closure. The detectives move on, following new leads, chasing new rumors. But the house on Susquehanna Road remains in the back of their minds, a symbol of all that is unknowable, all that is lost. The mystery deepens, its shadows lengthening with each passing day. And somewhere in the city, the boy in the box waits, his story still untold, his name still unspoken, his memory a wound that refuses to heal. The psychic's vision. By early spring, The boy in the box case has become a citywide obsession and a police department's torment. Leads have dried up. Suspects have been questioned and released. Evidence sits mute and unyielding in the evidence room. The detectives, once fueled by hope and adrenaline, now move through their days with the heavy gait of men haunted by failure. The city's newspapers, once filled with daily updates, now print only speculation and sorrow. The boy's face, retouched, smiling, impossibly alive, still peers out from every lamppost and shop window, but the world around him is growing numb. It is in this moment of desperation that the detectives, men of evidence, logic, and hard-won cynicism, turn, almost against their own will, to the world of the unseen. The idea is first whispered in the squad room, half as a joke, half as a dare. What about a psychic? There is laughter, then silence, then a slow, reluctant agreement. The case has defied reason at every turn. Perhaps, they think, it is time to try something unreasonable. Detective Stanley Ziegler makes the call to a woman in New Jersey, a psychic whose name has surfaced in a handful of other cases, whose reputation is equal parts hope and hucksterism. Her name is never printed in the papers, but in the file she is known as Mrs. B. She agrees to meet the detectives at her modest home, a clapboard house on a quiet street, where wind chimes tinkle in the breeze and the air smells faintly of incense. The detectives arrive in their Sunday best, uncomfortable in the soft chairs of Mrs. B's parlor, surrounded by velvet drapes and shelves crowded with crystals and candles. She greets them with a gentle smile, her eyes sharp and knowing. She asks for an object from the case, a photograph, a scrap of blanket, anything that belonged to the boy. Ziegler produces the retouched flyer and the detectives watch as she holds it in her hands, closing her eyes, her lips moving in silent prayer. The room is silent but for the ticking of a grandfather clock. The detectives, men who have seen the worst the city can offer, feel a strange flutter of hope and shame. Mrs. B begins to speak, her voice low and distant. She describes a house, a rundown home, crowded, filled with children and secrets. She sees a man, angry and frightened, and a young woman with sad eyes. She sees the boy, alone and afraid, and a sense of overwhelming sorrow. Her words are vague, but the detectives feel a chill. The description fits the foster home on Susquehanna Road, the house of Arthur Nicoletti and Anna Marie, already searched and dismissed. Mrs. B insists the boy was there. He was hurt there. That is where you will find your answers. She warns them to look again, to search for something hidden, something overlooked. The detectives leave, embarrassed and uncertain. They have nothing new, nothing concrete, only the echo of a stranger's vision. But desperation is a powerful motivator. They return to the Nicoletti house, this time with a new sense of purpose. They search again, every room, every closet, every inch of the yard. They question the residents once more, their questions sharper, their eyes keener. But the result is the same. Nothing. No evidence. No confession. No connection to the boy in the box. Word of the psychic's involvement leaks to the press, and the city erupts in a new wave of speculation. The newspapers mock the police for their desperation, running headlines like "Detectives turn to crystal balls" and "Psychic sees ghosts, not clues." Editorials scoff at the idea that a murder case could be solved by visions and dreams. The detectives, already weary, feel the sting of public ridicule. But the public's imagination is captured. Letters pour in, some from other psychics, offering their services, some from citizens convinced they have seen the boy in dreams, some from people who believe the answer lies in the stars, the cards, the lines of a poem. The case, already a magnet for obsession, now draws in the city's longing for magic, for meaning, for a way to make sense of the senseless. For the detectives, the episode is a bitter lesson in hope and futility. They file Mrs. B's vision alongside the other dead ends, another page in a growing file of sorrow. But in quiet moments, when the city is asleep and the only sound is the wind rattling the flyers on the lampposts, They remember her words. They remember the house, the sorrow, the sense of something hidden just out of reach. The psychic's vision does not solve the case. It does not bring the boy's name, or his killer, or the peace the city so desperately craves. But it lingers, a shadow in the minds of those who searched for him, a reminder that some mysteries refuse to be solved by reason alone. And so, the boy in the box remains a riddle, unsolved, unclaimed, and unforgettable. The detectives move on, chasing new leads, haunted by the sense that the answer is still out there, waiting to be seen by someone willing to look beyond the evidence, into the shadows where memory and imagination meet. The public's theories. As the weeks pass, the boy in the box case becomes more than a police investigation. It becomes a citywide fever dream. The story has seeped into every corner of Philadelphia, infecting dinner table conversations, barroom debates, and the whispered confidences of neighbors on stoops and streetcars. The city's collective imagination, starved for answers and fueled by fear, begins to churn out theories, each more elaborate, more desperate, more haunting than the last. The police station is inundated. Each morning, Detective Stanley Ziegler arrives to find his desk buried beneath a fresh avalanche of letters. Some are written in careful script on monogram stationery, others scrawled in pencil on torn scraps of paper. They come from every neighborhood, every walk of life: housewives, factory workers, school children, retired soldiers, even the city's clergy. Some are anonymous, others sign with trembling hands. Each offers a theory, a clue, a demand for justice. The letters are a chorus of hope and hysteria. Some claim to have seen the boy on a trolley in a church at the edge of a playground. Others insist he's the child of a neighbor, a cousin, a friend's friend who vanished without explanation. There are accusations of cruel parents, of secretive foster homes, of itinerant workers passing through the city's shadows. There are suggestions to search the river, check the train yards, question the traveling carnivals that pass through each spring. Among the most persistent theories is that the boy was a runaway. He looks like a child who's been on his own, one letter reads. Thin, scared, always watching the door. Some writers are certain they saw him begging for change on Market Street, or sleeping in the alcove behind a bakery. Others imagine him fleeing an abusive home, hiding in the city's alleys and abandoned buildings, only to meet a tragic end at the hands of a stranger. Another theory, darker and more chilling, is that the boy was a victim of human trafficking. The city's port, its rail lines, its endless flow of newcomers, these are the arteries through which, some claim, children are bought and sold, lost and discarded. This is not the first, one letter warns. There are others. Look for the pattern. Look for the men who come and go at night. The detectives read these words with a shiver, knowing that such horrors are not beyond the realm of possibility. Some letters are wild with speculation. One claims the boy is the lost heir to a fortune, hidden away to prevent a scandal. Another suggests he was the subject of a medical experiment gone wrong, his scars and malnutrition the result of secret tests. There are whispers of cults, of secret societies, of foreign spies using children as pawns in games too complex for ordinary minds to fathom. There are, too, the letters of the grieving and the guilty. Mothers who lost children years before, still searching for closure. Men and women confessing to sins real and imagined, hoping that by unburdening themselves they might find absolution. Some letters are little more than cries for help, the pain of the city made manifest in ink and paper. The detectives, for all their skepticism, read every letter. They follow up on each tip, no matter how improbable. They visit homes, question neighbors, check school records and hospital admissions. They interview carnival workers, dockhands, and drifters. Each lead is a thread, and they pull at them all, hoping one will unravel the knot at the heart of the case. But none of the tips pan out. The sightings are false, the accusations unfounded. The boy remains unclaimed, his story untold. The detectives grow weary, their hope battered by the endless tide of speculation and sorrow. The city, too, begins to tire. The headlines grow smaller, the vigils less frequent. But the letters keep coming, a testament to the mysteries hold on the public imagination. In the quiet of the evidence room, Detective Ziegler sits with a stack of letters, his eyes burning from lack of sleep. He wonders at the city's capacity for empathy, for fear, for invention. He wonders, too, at the boy's silence, at the way a single child, unknown and unloved, can haunt the dreams of millions. The case becomes a mirror, reflecting the city's anxieties and hopes. In the absence of answers, the public creates its own truths, its own villains and heroes. The boy in the box is every lost child, every unanswered question, every secret too terrible to speak aloud. And so the theories multiply, each one a story, each one a prayer. The detectives keep searching, the city keeps hoping, and the boy in the box remains silent, mysterious, and unforgettable. The M story. Decades pass. The city's skyline changes, the vacant lot on Susquehanna Road is swallowed by new construction, and the boy in the box becomes a legend, a cautionary tale whispered in classrooms and at kitchen tables. The original detectives are gone, their files boxed and shelved, but the mystery persists, haunting the city's collective memory. The boy's grave, marked America's Unknown Child, is tended by strangers who leave flowers and toys, their offerings a silent promise that he will not be forgotten. It is in this atmosphere of lingering sorrow and obsession that a new voice emerges. The year is 2002, and the case, cold, but never closed, finds itself thrust back into the public eye. A woman, known only as M, contacts the authorities. Her voice trembles on the phone, her story halting, as if each word cost her something precious. She does not want her real name used. She fears her mother, even now. M's account is harrowing, so much so that seasoned detectives, long inured to horror, find themselves shaken. She claims that in the early 1950s, her mother, a woman known for cruelty and control, purchased a young boy from his birth parents. He was not adopted through official channels, M insists, but bought, acquired in secret, brought into their home like a stray animal. M describes the boy as timid, withdrawn, always hungry, always watching the adults with wide, wary eyes. He was not allowed to play outside. He was not sent to school. He was, in every sense, a secret. M remembers her mother's rages, how the boy was the focus of her anger, how he was punished for the smallest infractions, how the house seemed to shrink around him, suffocating and silent. She recalls the boy's surgical scars, the same as those described in the autopsy reports, the groin, the ankle, the L-shaped mark beneath his chin. She remembers, too, the night everything changed. It was 1957, a winter night thick with dread. M says she heard shouting, her mother's voice, sharp and furious, the boy's cries muffled by a closed door. There was a crash, then silence. When M crept from her room, she saw her mother carrying the boy's limp body, wrapped in a blanket. She watched, frozen, as her mother loaded the boy into the trunk of their car and drove off into the night. When her mother returned, she was calm, her hands scrubbed clean, her clothes changed. The boy was never seen again. M was told never to speak of him, never to ask questions, never to mention his name. The house was scrubbed, the boy's few belongings burned or thrown away. The secret, her mother warned, would stay in the family. For years, M kept her silence, haunted by guilt and fear. But as the story of the boy in the box resurfaced in the news, she began to wonder, was it him? The scars, the age, the timing all matched. The memory gnawed at her, growing sharper with each retelling. Finally, she could bear it no longer. She contacted the authorities, her confession a desperate attempt at absolution. Detectives listened, their faces grave. They asked for details, addresses, dates, names, but M's memories are fragmented, clouded by time and trauma. She cannot recall the exact location of the house, only that it was near Philadelphia, in a neighborhood that has since changed beyond recognition. She cannot remember the boy's real name. Her mother is dead, her secrets buried with her. The police investigate. They scour property records, old census data, hospital admissions. They interview surviving relatives, neighbors, anyone who might remember a strange, silent boy living in the shadows. But the trail is cold, the evidence circumstantial. No one else recalls the boy. No one can corroborate M's story. Still, there are chilling coincidences. The surgical scars, the timing, the proximity to the city, all fit. But without records, without physical evidence, the story remains just that, a story. The detectives, hardened by years of disappointment, are careful not to let hope cloud their judgment. They file M's account alongside the others, the tips, the theories, the confessions. Another thread in a tapestry of sorrow. The press learns of the M's story, and the city is electrified. Headline screen: Woman claims mother killed boy in the box. Talk radio buzzes with speculation. Some believe M's account is the answer, the closure the city has craved for decades. Others dismiss it as fantasy, the invention of a troubled mind seeking attention or absolution. For the families of missing children, the story is both a torment and a balm. It offers the possibility of answers, but also the certainty that some mysteries are too deep, too tangled, to ever be fully unraveled. The boy in the box remains unnamed, his story unfinished. M, for her part, fades back into anonymity. She has told her truth, or what she believes to be the truth. The burden is lighter, but the guilt remains. She visits the boy's grave, leaving a single white rose. She whispers an apology, a prayer, a plea for forgiveness. The detectives move on, the case file a little thicker, the mystery no closer to resolution. The city, too, moves on, but the boy's face still lingers in the archives, in the memories of those who search for him, in the dreams of those who wonder what might have been. The M story is the last great hope of the case, the final, desperate attempt to give the boy a name. But in the end, it is just another echo in the long, empty corridors of the city's memory. The boy in the box remains what he has always been, a question without an answer, a life without a name, a sorrow without end. The lost identity. The boy's body, so small and silent on the autopsy table, had already yielded its secrets of suffering. But the final, most crucial secret, his name, remained locked away. In 1957, as the city of Philadelphia reeled from the horror of his discovery, the machinery of modern identification was set in motion. The detectives, desperate for a foothold, turned to science and bureaucracy, hoping that somewhere in the vast, interconnected web of American life, the boy's identity would be waiting to be found. At the city morgue, technicians inked the boy's tiny fingers, pressing them gently onto fingerprint cards. Each ridge and whorl was captured in black and white, as unique as a snowflake, as singular as a voice. His footprints were taken too, the soft pads of his feet pressed on a paper, a record of his brief passage through the world. The boy's dental records, meticulously catalogued by Dr. Spellman, were added to the file. Each baby tooth, each gap, each subtle difference in shape and placement. These records, the sum of the boy's physical self, were dispatched across the country. The Philadelphia police sent them to every state agency, every major city, every federal office that might have a missing child on file. The FBI added the boy to its national database, a new entry among thousands of lost children, runaways, and victims of violence. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, though not yet the institution it would become, circulated his information to police departments from coast to coast. Weeks passed, then months. The detectives waited, hope flickering with each new envelope, each phone call, each report from another jurisdiction. But the answers, when they came, were always the same. No match. No missing child report that fit. No school records. No hospital admissions. No foster care files. The boy's fingerprints did not match any in the FBI's files. His dental chart yielded nothing. His footprints, so carefully taken, found no echo in any nursery or hospital. The city's frustration grew. How could a child, so young and so vulnerable, simply vanish from the record? How could no one, anywhere, be searching for him? The detectives pored over the files, searching for a missed detail, a clerical error, a misfiled report. They checked and rechecked, called and recalled, wrote letters and telegrams, and made late-night phone calls to distant towns. But the silence was unbroken. In the neighborhoods of Philadelphia, rumors swirled. Some believed the boy must have come from far away, from another city, another state, perhaps even another country. Others whispered that he had never been registered at birth, that he was the child of transients or criminals, born and raised in the shadows. Some clung to the hope that he was a runaway, his parents searching for him even now, unaware that their son had become the city's most haunting mystery. The detectives considered every possibility. They investigated hospitals and clinics, searching for records of a child with the same surgical scars, a hernia operation, a procedure on the ankle. They interviewed doctors and nurses, showing them photographs, describing the boy's injuries. But no one remembered him. No one had treated a child who matched his description. The search extended to orphanages and foster homes, to schools and churches, to every institution that might have touched the life of a lost child. The records were incomplete, the memories faded. The boy remained a ghost, slipping through the cracks of a system never designed to catch every fall. As the years passed, the technology of identification advanced. In the 1960s and 70s, new databases were created, new methods developed. The boy's records were updated, digitized, recirculated. Still, no match. In the 1990s, as DNA testing became possible, the boy's body was exhumed, a sample taken and added to the growing national registry. The detectives, now old men, watched with hope and dread as the results came in. Once again, there was nothing. No parent, no sibling, no distant relative came forward. The boy's file grew thicker, each new effort another layer of failure. His fingerprints, footprints, dental records, and DNA became the most complete record of an unidentified child in American history. Yet for all the science, all the bureaucracy, all the hope and effort, the boy remained what he had always been, a question without an answer. In the city's collective memory, the boy took on a new role. He was no longer just a victim. He was a symbol of all the lost, all the forgotten, all the children who slipped through the cracks. His grave, once marked only by a number, became a place of pilgrimage. Strangers left flowers, toys, notes. Some whispered prayers. Others simply stood in silence, honoring a life that had touched them without ever knowing his name. Detective Stanley Ziegler, now retired, visited the grave each year on the anniversary of the boy's discovery. He would stand in the quiet, watching the wind stir the grass, and remember the day he first saw the box in the weeds. He would remember the hope, the frustration, the endless search for a name. And he would wonder, as he always did, how a child could become a ghost in his own city. The boy in the box remains, to this day, a mystery. His fingerprints, footprints, and dental records are preserved in the archives, a testament to the city's determination to remember him. But his name, his story, his past, these are lost, perhaps forever. He is a ghost, haunting the city's dreams, a reminder of all the questions that remain unanswered. And so, the search continues. Each new advance in science, each new effort to match the boy to a missing child, brings a flicker of hope. But the silence persists, deep and unbroken. The boy remains what he has always been, a face without a name, a story without an ending, a sorrow without a voice. A grave for the nameless. By the time the summer sun began to bake the city's streets in July 1957, the case of the boy in the box had already slipped from the front page to the shadows of Philadelphia's collective memory. The search for his name had yielded nothing. The flyers had faded and curled on telephone poles. The city's children, once kept indoors by anxious parents, now played again in the vacant lots and alleys, their laughter returning to the air. But for the detectives, the volunteers, and the strangers who had come to care for a child they had never known, the wound was still fresh, a raw, aching absence that demanded some kind of closure. The city made its decision. The boy would be buried in Potter's Field, the resting place for Philadelphia's unknown and unclaimed. There would be no family to mourn him, no relatives to stand at the graveside. But he would not go into the earth alone. The detectives who would search for his name, the volunteers who had combed the woods, and the strangers who had left flowers at the morgue all gathered to bear witness. It was a hot, cloudless morning when the small white coffin was carried from the city morgue. There was no procession, no music, no eulogy, just the slow, solemn march of men and women who refused to let the boy be forgotten. Detective Stanley Ziegler walked at the front, his hat pressed to his chest, his eyes red-rimmed from sleepless nights. Behind him came Dr. Joseph Spellman, the medical examiner who had cataloged the boy's injuries with clinical precision and private grief. A handful of uniformed officers followed, their faces set in grim lines. The cemetery was quiet, a patchwork of weeds and wildflowers, the graves marked by simple stones or, more often, by nothing at all. The grave for the boy had been dug at the edge of the field, beneath the shade of a gnarled oak. The earth was freshly turned, the scent of clay and grass heavy in the air. The coffin was lowered into the ground with care. There were no prayers, no hymns, just the shuffling of feet, the soft murmur of voices, the distant hum of the city beyond the cemetery gates. Someone placed a single white rose on the lid, its petals trembling in the breeze. Another left a small toy, a battered teddy bear with one button eye. These were the only offerings, the only tokens of a life that had ended before it had truly begun. The city had provided a headstone, plain and unadorned. It bore no name, no date of birth, only a simple inscription. Heavenly Father, bless this unknown boy. As the first shovelfuls of earth fell on the coffin, the gathered mourners bowed their heads. Some wept openly, their tears falling for a child they had never met. Others stood in silence, their grief too deep for words. Detective Ziegler lingered at the graveside long after the others had gone, tracing the inscription with his fingertips, whispering a promise that the boy would not be forgotten. The burial made the news, but only briefly. There were no headlines, no follow-up stories. The city moved on, as cities do, its attention shifting to new scandals, new tragedies. But for those who had touched the case, who had seen the boy's face and searched for his name, the grave remained a wound, a reminder of all that was lost, all that was left undone. In the years that followed, the grave became a place of pilgrimage. Strangers came to leave flowers, toys, notes. Some brought their children, telling them the story of the boy who had no name, who had been loved by a city that never knew him. The detectives, now older, returned each year on the anniversary of the burial, standing in silence beneath the oak tree, remembering the search, the hope, the heartbreak. The boy's story faded from the headlines, but it lingered in the city's heart. His grave, once just another patch of earth in Potter's Field, became a symbol, a testament to the power of memory, of compassion, of the human need to bear witness. The inscription on the stone, simple and unadorned, became a prayer for all the lost children, all the unanswered questions, all the mysteries that refused to be forgotten. And so, the boy in the box was laid to rest, not as a victim, not as a case number, but as a child, mourned by a city that could not save him, but would not let him vanish without a trace. In the hush of the cemetery, beneath the shade of the oak, his story endures, a silent plea for justice, for remembrance, for the dignity of a name. The case that haunts. Years slip by, and Philadelphia's skyline continues to rise, its neighborhoods shifting and growing, but the shadow of the boy in the box never fully lifts. The city's rhythms return. Children's laughter echoes in the parks. New headlines crowd the old from the front page, and the world moves on. Yet, in the quiet corners of police precincts and in the private recesses of memory, the case endures, a wound that refuses to heal, a question that will not be silenced. The detectives who first stood in the drizzle on Susquehanna Road age and retire, their hair graying, their steps slowing, but the boy's face remains with them. For Detective Stanley Ziegler, the memory is sharp as ever. A small, battered body in a cardboard box, the cold mud beneath his knees, the way the city seemed to hold its breath. He keeps a copy of the boy's retouched photograph in his wallet, a silent promise that he will not forget. Even in retirement, Ziegler finds himself drawn to the old case files, thumbing through reports and photographs, searching for the clue he might have missed. The files themselves grow thick and unwieldy, a testament to decades of hope and heartbreak. Each folder is a chronicle of dead leads, interviews with neighbors who remembered nothing, lists of missing children who were found alive or never matched the boy's scars, reports from hospitals and orphanages, tips from psychics and strangers. Each new detective assigned to the case adds their own notes, their own theories, their own disappointments. The paper grows yellowed at the edges, the ink fading, but the story remains as vivid as the day it began. For some, the case becomes an obsession. Detectives wake in the night, haunted by dreams of the boy's face, by the sense that the answer is just out of reach. They revisit the lot on Susquehanna Road, now overgrown and nearly unrecognizable, searching for a sense of closure that never comes. They talk about the case in hushed tones at reunions and retirement dinners, the conversation always circling back to the same questions. Who was he? Who failed him? Why did no one come forward? The city, too, is marked by the case. For a time, the boy's story is everywhere, on flyers, in newspapers, on the lips of every parent and child. But as the years pass, the story recedes, replaced by new tragedies, new mysteries. Yet the wound remains. The grave in Potter's Field becomes a place of pilgrimage, tended by strangers who leave flowers and toys, who whisper prayers for a child they never knew. The inscription on the headstone, "Heavenly Father, bless this unknown boy," becomes a kind of citywide benediction, a plea for mercy, for remembrance, for justice. The detectives who inherit the case in later years find themselves caught in a web of history and grief. They read the old files, retrace the old steps, follow up on tips that lead nowhere. They consult new technologies, DNA databases, digital archives, forensic reconstructions, but the silence persists. The boy's fingerprints, footprints, dental records, even his DNA, are all preserved, all circulated, all unmatched. He remains a ghost, a cipher, a presence that lingers in the city's consciousness. For every detective, there is a moment when the case becomes personal. For Ziegler, it is the memory of the boy's face, the sense of responsibility that never fades. For others, it is the letters from the public, the stories of missing children, the hope that one day, someone will come forward. Some detectives keep the boy's photograph on their desks, a reminder of the work left undone. Others visit his grave on the anniversary of his burial, standing in silence beneath the oak tree, remembering the search, the hope, the heartbreak. The city moves on, as cities do. New buildings rise, old neighborhoods change, and the world forgets. But the case lingers, a wound that will not heal. The boy in the box remains unnamed, his story unfinished, his memory a shadow on the city's heart. For the detectives who searched for him, for the strangers who mourned him, for the city that could not save him, the case is more than a mystery. It is a testament to the limits of justice, to the power of memory, to the enduring need to bear witness. And so, the files grow thicker, the years grow longer, and the boy remains, a question without an answer, a sorrow without a name, a case that haunts Philadelphia still. DNA in the digital age. The years rolled on, and the boy in the box became a legend shrouded in sorrow and speculation. The world changed around his silent grave, television gave way to the internet, and the city's skyline stretched ever higher. Yet, through decades of technological progress, the boy's identity remained as elusive as ever, his story frozen in time. But hope, like technology, is relentless. The promise of science, the idea that every secret can one day be revealed, drew the case back into the light, even as the city itself seemed ready to let it fade. By the late 1990s, the case files had grown thick and yellowed, but a new generation of detectives and forensic scientists saw a possibility where others had seen only dead ends. DNA, the code of life itself, had begun to unlock mysteries once thought unsolvable. Across the country, cold cases were being cracked, missing persons reunited with their names, the lost finally claimed by the living. In Philadelphia, the boy in the box was about to be given one more chance at recognition. In 1998, under the gray gaze of television cameras and the watchful eyes of the city's most dogged investigators, the boy's grave was opened for the first time in over 40 years. The cemetery was silent but for the low voices of officials and the gentle hum of machinery. The small coffin was lifted from the earth, its white paint now faded and chipped. The inscription, "Heavenly Father, bless this unknown boy," still legible beneath the dust of decades. The exhumation was carried out with reverence and care. Forensic anthropologists and pathologists worked in silence, their movements deliberate and respectful. The boy's remains, so fragile after years underground, were transferred to the city morgue, where the latest scientific tools awaited. There, In a sterile lab filled with the hum of computers and the scent of disinfectant, the process began. A small sample of bone and tooth was carefully extracted and sent to the University of North Texas, home to one of the nation's leading forensic DNA labs. The scientists worked meticulously, isolating the mitochondrial DNA, the genetic material passed down from mother to child, unchanged through generations. It was a slow, painstaking process, fraught with the risk of contamination, the ever-present fear that time itself had erased the answers they sought. When the results came, they were both a triumph and a heartbreak. The DNA profile was clear, viable, a genetic fingerprint that could, in theory, identify the boy or his maternal relatives. The profile was entered into national databases, compared against thousands of missing persons, unidentified remains, and family reference samples. The detectives waited, hope flickering with each new search. No match was found. The silence, so familiar, returned. The boy's DNA, unique and undeniable, found no echo in the records of the living or the lost. No mother, no sibling, no distant cousin came forward. The code that might have revealed his name instead confirmed only his isolation. He remained, as he had always been, alone, a ghost in the machinery of modern science. But the case did not die. If anything, the exhumation and the promise of DNA breathed new life into the city's obsession. The story was featured on television specials, in true crime documentaries, on internet forums where amateur sleuths pored over every detail. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children took up the cause, determined to give the boy a face that would speak to a new generation. In 2016, the center released a new facial reconstruction, crafted with the latest digital techniques. Forensic artists used the boy's skull as a foundation, layering muscle and skin, adjusting for age, ethnicity, and the subtle quirks of childhood. The result was uncanny, a lifelike image of a boy, perhaps 4 or 5 years old, with large, searching eyes and a solemn, hopeful expression. He was no longer the pale, retouched photograph from 1957, but a child who could belong to any family, any neighborhood, any era. The image was released to the public, shared across social media, broadcast on national news, printed in newspapers from Philadelphia to Los Angeles. The hope was simple: someone, somewhere, would recognize him. Someone would see the curve of his jaw, the set of his eyes, and remember a brother, a nephew, a son lost to time. The detectives braced themselves for the flood of calls, the rush of new leads, the possibility that the answer was finally within reach. But again, the silence was deafening. The tips that came in were hopeful, earnest, but ultimately led nowhere. No family stepped forward. No missing child report matched the boy's scars, his dental records, his DNA. The detectives followed every lead, checked every database, but the trail always ended in the same place, the void where the boy's name should have been. For the families of missing children, the reconstruction was a torment and a comfort. Some saw their own lost loved ones in the boy's face, clinging to the hope that he might finally be found. Others were relieved to know, at last, that their children were not the ones buried in the potter's field. For the detectives, the new technology was both a gift and a curse, a reminder that even the most advanced science cannot always overcome the weight of time and silence. The boy's grave was resealed, the headstone cleaned and restored. Visitors continued to come, leaving flowers, toys, and notes. The detectives, some now old and gray, others new to the case, returned each year to pay their respects. The files grew thicker, the databases more sophisticated, but the answer remained out of reach. In the digital age, the boy in the box became a symbol, a mystery that endured despite every effort to solve it, a story that united generations in compassion and frustration. His DNA, his face, his story were preserved in the archives of science and memory, waiting for the day when a match might finally be found. Until then, he remained what he had always been: a question, a hope, a child lost to time. Theories in the shadows. As the years stretched into decades, the boy in the box was no longer just a case. He was a legend, a cipher woven into the fabric of Philadelphia's collective memory. His story was told in whispers at bedtime, in the nervous glances of parents watching their children play, in the quiet moments of reflection at his grave. The facts had long since ossified, but in the absence of answers, The shadows filled with theories, each plausible, each chilling, none provable. The first theory, persistent and unsettling, was that the boy had been a victim of trafficking. The city's proximity to major highways, rail lines, and the bustling port made it a crossroads for those who wished to disappear or to make others disappear. Some imagined the boy as one of many, ferried from place to place, hidden in plain sight, his identity erased by those who profited from his suffering. The surgical scars, the careful grooming, the absence of any missing child report, these became, in the public mind, the marks of a child passed from hand to hand, a commodity rather than a son. The idea was horrifying, but it explained the silence, the lack of claim, the way the boy seemed to have slipped through every net meant to catch the lost. Others believed the boy was the child of a transient, a drifter, a migrant worker, someone living on the margins of society. In the years after the Second World War, Philadelphia, like so many American cities, was a place of movement and upheaval. Families came and went, seeking work, fleeing hardship, living in boarding houses and shelters, their names forgotten as soon as they left. Perhaps the boy had never been enrolled in school, never seen by a doctor, never known by anyone outside a small, insular world. Perhaps his parents, desperate or destitute, had left him behind, unable to care for him, unable to claim him even in death. The theory was plausible, but it offered little comfort, a story of abandonment, not malice, but no less tragic for it. A third theory, whispered in kitchens and police stations alike, was that the boy was the son of a desperate mother. Maybe she was young, unmarried, terrified of the shame and ruin that would follow if her secret was discovered. Maybe she had hidden her pregnancy, given birth in silence, and tried, for a time, to care for her child. The surgical scars suggested medical attention, but not the kind that left a paper trail. Perhaps, in a moment of despair or rage or simple exhaustion, she had struck him, and when he died, she had cleaned his body, cut his hair, and placed him in the box with a blanket, one last act of care for a child she could not keep. This theory, more than any other, haunted those who worked the case. It was a story of love twisted by circumstance, of tragedy born from isolation. Other theories flickered at the edges of the legend. Some believed the boy was the victim of a failed adoption, a child passed from home to home until he was no longer wanted. Others saw the hand of organized crime, or imagined a secret society, or suspected a cover-up by someone powerful enough to erase all traces of the boy's existence. Each theory found its adherents, its evidence, its logic. Each was debated in letters to the editor, in late-night radio shows, in the endless churn of internet forums and true crime documentaries. But as the decades passed, the theories themselves became part of the legend. The facts, the box, the blanket, the scars, the grave were immutable, but the story spun around them grew ever more elaborate. The city, unable to bear the weight of not knowing, filled the silence with possibility. The boy became a mirror, reflecting the fears and hopes of each generation. To some, he was a symbol of the dangers lurking in the city's shadows. To others, a reminder of the children still lost, still waiting to be found. Detectives, old and new, returned to the case with each advance in forensic science, each new tip, each anniversary. They read the old files, followed the old leads, considered the old theories. But the truth remained elusive, hidden in the gaps between evidence and imagination. The boy's grave, once a place of mourning, became a site of pilgrimage, a testament to the city's refusal to forget. In the end, the theories and the shadows were all that remained. Each was plausible. None were provable. The boy in the box was, and is, a legend, a story without an ending, a question without an answer, a wound that will not heal. He endures in the city's memory, in the files of the police, in the hearts of those who search for the lost. And in the quiet moments, when the wind stirs the grass on Susquehanna Road, his story is still told, not as a case to be solved, but as a mystery to be honored, a reminder of all that remains unknown in the world. The detectives despair. The years have a way of softening the sharpest pains, but some wounds never truly close. For the detectives who once poured their hearts and sleepless nights into the mystery of the boy in the box, the passage of time brings not relief, but a deepening ache, a sorrow that lingers in the quiet moments, in the spaces between memory and regret. Among them is Bob Kenny, a retired homicide sergeant whose career was marked by dogged persistence and a stubborn refusal to let the lost be forgotten. Kenny was not the first to work the case, nor would he be the last, but the boy's face, haunting, innocent, forever 5 years old, became a fixture in his mind, a silent companion for decades of police work. Each year, as winter gave way to the tentative warmth of spring, Kenny made his pilgrimage to the boy's grave in Ivy Hill Cemetery, a small bouquet of wildflowers clutched in his weathered hands. The cemetery itself is a patchwork of old stones and new, shaded by ancient oaks and maples whose roots twist through the earth like the city's own tangled history. The grave is easy to find now, no longer the anonymous plot in Potter's Field, but a place marked by love and remembrance. The headstone, simple but dignified, reads, "Heavenly Father, bless this unknown boy." It is often adorned with toys, flowers, and handwritten notes from strangers who never knew the boy in life but who, like Kenny, have come to claim him in death. Standing at the grave, Kenny feels the weight of all the years, all the unanswered questions. He remembers the endless nights spent poring over files, the interviews that led nowhere, the tips that fizzled into silence. He remembers the hope that flared with each new lead, the DNA testing, the facial reconstructions, the psychic's visions, only to be snuffed out by the cold logic of evidence. He remembers the faces of his fellow detectives, some now gone, others grown old, their eyes still shadowed by the case they could not solve. "He's everybody's child," Kenny says softly, his voice barely more than a whisper. The words are for the boy, for the city, for himself. In that simple phrase lies the heart of the mystery, the reason why, after so many years, the case still matters. The boy in the box is not just a victim. He is a symbol of every lost child, every unanswered question, every failure of the system meant to protect the most vulnerable. His story is the city's story, its shame and its hope entwined. The city's heart aches for the boy no one claimed. Each year, on the anniversary of his burial, a small crowd gathers at the grave, detectives, journalists, volunteers, and ordinary citizens drawn by the pull of a story that refuses to fade. Some come to pray, others to lay flowers, others simply to stand in silence, bearing witness to a life that ended in anonymity but endures in memory. The ceremony is always simple, always solemn. There are no speeches, no grand gestures, just the quiet presence of those who care. For Kenny, the visit is both a ritual and a reckoning. He speaks to the boy as he would to a son, telling him of the city's changes, of the detectives who still chase his name, of the hope that one day someone will come forward. He apologizes for the failure to find the truth, for the limits of justice, for the stubborn silence of the past. He promises, as he always does, that the search will not end, that the boy will not be forgotten. The files grow thicker each year, their pages yellowing with age. New detectives take up the case, bringing fresh eyes and fresh hope, but the result is always the same: dead ends, cold trails, the unyielding silence of the grave. The boy's fingerprints, footprints, dental records, and DNA are preserved in the archives, a testament to the city's determination to remember. But his name, his story, his past, these remain out of reach. The city moves on, as cities do. New tragedies eclipse the old, new mysteries demand attention. But the boy in the box lingers, a wound that will not heal. His grave is a place of pilgrimage, his story a lesson in compassion and humility. For those who remember, for those who care, he is not just a case, not just a headline, but a child, a life cut short, a mystery that endures. As Kenny leaves the cemetery, he looks back one last time, the spring sunlight glinting off the headstone. He knows he will return, as he always does, as long as he is able. The boy's face will stay with him, a reminder of the work left undone, of the promise to never let the lost be forgotten. He's everybody's child, Kenny repeats, the words echoing in the quiet. And in that echo, the city's heart aches, not just for the boy in the box, but for all the children who wait to be found, for all the mysteries that refuse to be solved, for all the wounds that time cannot heal. A name at last? By 2022, the boy in the box had become as much myth as memory, a story passed down through generations, a riddle that haunted not just Philadelphia, but the entire country. His grave, once lonely and unmarked, was now a place of pilgrimage, visited by strangers who left flowers, toys, and notes. This face, reimagined by artists and computers, had stared out from newspapers, television screens, and websites for decades. Yet, the question that had haunted detectives, journalists, and the public for 65 years remained unanswered. Who was he? But the world had changed since 1957. The tools of investigation were no longer limited to fingerprint cards, dental charts, and the slow grind of paperwork. Science had advanced, and with it, the hope that even the oldest mysteries might one day be solved. The greatest leap came with the rise of genetic genealogy, a technology that could reach back through generations, mapping the invisible threads that connect families, communities, and histories. The Philadelphia Police Department, working with forensic genealogists and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, decided to try again. This time, they would not just compare the boy's DNA to known missing children. Instead, they would upload his genetic profile to public databases, places where millions of people, searching for their own roots, had voluntarily shared their DNA. It was a new kind of search, one that did not require a name, only the hope that somewhere, someone shared a piece of the boy's story. The process was painstaking. Forensic scientists extracted a new DNA sample from the boy's remains, now carefully preserved after 2 exhumations. The sample was sequenced, digitized, and uploaded to GeneMatch and other public genealogy sites. The search began, not for a direct parent or sibling, but for distant cousins, 3rd and 4th and 5th removed, whose shared segments of DNA might point the way to a family tree. Weeks passed. The genealogists built charts and maps, tracing the boy's genetic connections through centuries and across continents. They pored over census records, birth certificates, marriage licenses, and obituaries, assembling the puzzle piece by piece. There were false starts and dead ends, branches that withered, names that led nowhere. But then, a breakthrough, a match, distant but undeniable. A cousin, living hundreds of miles away, whose DNA overlapped with the boy's in a way that could not be coincidence. The cousin was contacted, gently, cautiously. She had never heard of the boy in the box, never imagined that her family history might hold the key to one of America's most enduring mysteries. She provided more information, more DNA samples, and the web of connections grew tighter. Other relatives were found, some close, some distant, all surprised to learn of a lost child in their family tree. The investigation raced anew. Detectives and genealogists worked side by side, tracing the boy's lineage through generations of marriages, migrations, and secrets. They searched for a missing child, a lost branch, a story that had been hidden or forgotten. Each new discovery brought them closer to the truth, but also raised new questions. How had the boy disappeared? Why had no one reported him missing? What secrets had been kept, and why? The world watched, breathless. News outlets picked up the story, broadcasting updates around the globe. Social media buzzed with speculation and hope. For the first time in decades, the boy in the box was not just a symbol of loss, but a promise of answers. The city of Philadelphia, which had carried the weight of his mystery for generations, dared to hope that the wound might finally heal. But the process was slow, and the answers were not simple. Family trees are tangled, and the past is often obscured by time, shame, and silence. Some relatives were eager to help. Others were wary, fearful of what might be uncovered. The detectives worked with compassion and patience, knowing that the truth, when it came, would change not just the story of the boy, but the lives of those connected to him. As the investigation unfolded, the city waited. The grave at Ivy Hill Cemetery, once a symbol of despair, became a place of hope. Visitors left notes expressing their anticipation, their prayers that the boy would finally have a name. The detectives, some now old men, some new to the case, felt the weight of history on their shoulders. They met in conference rooms and over coffee, reviewing the latest findings, debating the meaning of each new clue. And then, at last, the moment arrived. The genealogists traced the boy's lineage to a specific family, a specific place, a specific moment in time. The name, when it came, was both ordinary and extraordinary. A name that had been lost, now found. A life that had been hidden, now revealed. The city held its breath as the detectives prepared to announce the news. The world waited for a name. For some, the revelation brought closure, a sense that the boy, after so many years, had finally come home. For others, it raised new questions, new sorrows. But for all, it was a moment of grace, a reminder that even the oldest wounds can heal, that even the most stubborn mysteries can be solved. The boy in the box was no longer just a legend or a symbol. He was, at last, a child with a name, a family, a story. The city mourned him anew, but also celebrated the end of his anonymity. His grave, once marked America's unknown child, would soon bear the name he had been denied for so long. And in that moment, the city's heart, heavy for so many years, felt a measure of peace. The enduring mystery. Decades have passed since a battered cardboard box was found in the tangled weeds off Susquehanna Road. Yet the boy in the box remains Philadelphia's most haunting secret. The city has changed. Glass towers now glint where factories once stood. Neighborhoods have been reborn, and the relentless pulse of time has carried generations forward. But some stories refuse to fade, and some wounds never truly heal. The boy's story is a shadow on the city, a presence felt more than seen. It lingers in the hush of late-night patrol cars, in the careful way parents watch their children, in the solemn rituals of detectives who still visit his grave. His face, retouched, reconstructed, and reimagined, has become an icon of loss, a symbol of all the children who slipped through the cracks, all the questions that may never be answered. Through the years, the case has drawn the city together in shared heartbreak and frustration. It has inspired artists and writers, haunted the dreams of detectives, and moved strangers to leave flowers and toys at a grave marked first by a number, then by a prayer. Heavenly Father, bless this unknown boy. Each generation has searched for answers, clung to new technology, and hoped that a name might finally be spoken. Each time, the silence has returned, as deep and impenetrable as the winter earth. Theories have come and gone, swirling through the city like autumn leaves. Was he a victim of trafficking, a runaway, the child of a desperate mother, or a casualty of a system that failed to protect its most vulnerable? Each possibility has been investigated, each lead followed to its end. The files are thick with interviews, tips, and dead ends. The DNA databases have grown vast, and the digital age has offered new hope, but the boy's identity remains just out of reach, a whisper on the wind. For the detectives who worked the case, the boy became more than a mystery. He was a promise, a burden, a silent companion through years of service. Some, like Bob Kenny, returned to his grave year after year, whispering apologies and prayers. He's everybody's child, they would say, their voices heavy with the weight of all they could not do. The city's heart aches for this boy, unclaimed, unnamed, but never unloved. The story endures in the city's collective memory. Schoolchildren learn about the boy in the box as a lesson in compassion and vigilance. Journalists revisit the case on anniversaries, hoping that some new clue, some overlooked detail, might finally break the silence. The grave at Ivy Hill Cemetery is never without tokens of remembrance, left by those who refuse to let the boy be forgotten. And still, the wind rustles through the weeds on Susquehanna Road. The lot where the box was found is overgrown now, the city's expansion pressing close, but the place remains haunted by memory. On quiet evenings, when the sun dips behind the rooftops and the city holds its breath, it is easy to imagine the boy's spirit lingering there, waiting, watching, hoping that someone will speak his name. The boy in the box is more than a cold case. He is a reminder of the lost and the forgotten, of the questions that may never be answered. His story is a challenge to the living, to care, to remember, to search for truth even when it seems impossible. The city moves on, but his shadow remains, a silent plea for justice, for dignity, for the simple grace of being known. And so, The wind still stirs the grass on Susquehanna Road, whispering the name no one knows. The city listens and remembers and waits, hoping that one day the silence will be broken and the boy in the box will finally come home.